Morning, everyone. So I'm back from holiday and I'll give a few minutes just for people to join. So let's put that banner up to say that people can ask questions. So I hopefully look a bit more refreshed. See. So idea behind this is any questions you have, rather than DMing or emailing us, you can ask in this forum. And there's also a way for people to just chat and mingle as well. So generally at the moment, we're building this up. We're working on different ways to make it more engaging. So it's nice and chill and relaxed. There's no expectations there's going to be 1,000 people here or anything like that. So let me just sort out my other tabs. And what I'm going to do in a couple of minutes' time is I'll read through the newsletter we just sent out and give you the details of the events happening this week, some of the jobs available, and what we've been up to at the Bay HQ. Okay, let's close down some of my tabs so I don't get my internet to slow down too much. Let's close that. Okay. What else can we close? Okay. Yeah, so let me go through what's been happening this week and what's coming up. Actually, let me just wait a minute just to get some more people in. Okay. So just waiting for people to join. Okay, so give me one more minute and then I'll get through the newsletter. So if you have any questions in the comments, feel free to ask them. That's the whole point of this. So you know that you've got my attention right now, that I'm on this, and I can answer any questions. And what we'll have in the future, the idea is obviously this has changed names because we realize a lot of people don't know what Ask Me Anything is, which I didn't realize. So riffing on that, then what we've been able to do is change this name. It also means in the future, it could just be Gerver on this, or it could be somebody from the board, or it could be one of the ambassadors. And what that means is this can be a bit more dynamic. But that needs a bit of setup time, which I haven't yet done. So that's why you've got just me today. So let's have a look. Let's do... Okay. Oh, what's up there? Okay, so it's appeared. Okay, so if I go through some of the events first, so our event next week on Wednesday, I want to say, is with Barclays Rise. So Barclays Rise is the fintech accelerator. So if I break that down, fintech is obviously technology to do with finance, and then accelerator means that what they are is they taking companies who are early stage, they give them resources, they give them advice, they give them support, and then the idea is to then make them grow faster, right? And obviously they benefit from that because they get, whether it's equity or whether it's just what their company is building, something that Barclays want. And that's in Shoreditch. So that's going to be a panel with me hosting it. So be me hosting it. There'll be Matt Ong, who is the founder of Controlled Orp. So I think I can now say this. So I've invested in Matt's company. So that's one of my angel investments. And what his company does is it enables people to invest in alternative investments. And that's something traditionally has only been accessible to people with a lot of money who can get to hedge funds. So he's opening up finance through that way. Then Nina Mohanty, who is the founder of Bloom Money, and she's very focused on helping immigrants when they come to this country with their finances. Because if you imagine how complicated it is for people who are born and raised here, and if we don't get a financial education, imagine how difficult it is for people who move here as migrants to work here, or whatever reason they have to being here, to work out how to set up a bank account properly, because you need an address, but then you can't get an address until you've got a bank account. And there's always different complicated problems and all of these different, for example, ISA and things like that, where there's these benefits available, but unless you know about them, then you can sometimes be left behind. So she's doing amazing work in that field. And I believe she's currently raising as well. So if anybody wants to invest, then hit me up. I can hopefully make that connection for you. And then finally is Nitya Gupta, who's an investor with Element Ventures. And so she's on the other side of the table in terms of she's looking for companies that are going to be the next big thing. So that, especially in the finance sector. So she's got that fintech experience. She's an expert in that area. And she can talk about that for people who want to change the world through like technology and finance. How can they do it? How can they frame themselves correctly? What's realistic? Because she obviously sees so many companies. She's got a good eye on what makes a good company, and also what makes a company that's worth investing in, and what might be something which has maybe been done before that hasn't worked out correctly and why that's happened. So she can provide that background, which is really good. So the whole panel is about financial inclusion through tech, right? Because some of you listening, obviously, people are all at different stages. Some people are financially secure, some people aren't. And for what many people find difficult is what's available and how to make things more automated so that there's less stress on them, or how to, there's lots of little problems that people have that fintech can potentially make cheaper. So for example, remittance is another key one that for a lot of people is sending money abroad and doing some of the transfers and setting up a business in the early days. So many admin and fees involved, which can be quite difficult for people. So that's one element. So that's next Wednesday. There's already, I think, 40 people signed up on the event page, another 60 or 70 more on LinkedIn. So I'm going to be mass messaging on LinkedIn today to be like, you need to sign up on the official event page. So how that works is we try to use LinkedIn to promote the event, but the actual guest list on the day will be from the event page. Because what we have to do is give the venue or the host the full guest list so that they can have security ready for that, right? So make sure you're there. So that's next Wednesday at 6:30, I want to say, with that panel. But also a big part of it, as people know from our previous events, is meeting the other founders and other investors who are in the crowd. So that's our big event coming up. Then if we look at the other events coming up this week, so let's have a look. So today, so these are all the events that are all free. You can find on like our website, which promote these events. You can sign up to our newsletter. If you haven't signed up to a newsletter yet, it's literally thebayhq.com/join us. And we're going to be focusing, so we're going to be focusing a lot more heavily on making sure that content is really good. for everybody out there. Okay. So events this week or things you can attend to help you grow. We've got Meet the Press. How can startups and scale-ups tell winning stories? So one of the people on that panel is Anissa Osman Britton, MBE, who's one of our good friends, and she's amazing. So you get to hear from her about how to tell a story that is going to help you get pressed, right? Because what some people don't realize is how you frame things for, say, a podcast versus how you frame things for a newsletter or for a news site is very different. And you need to do that framing right, because same thing for us, same thing for everybody else. What we care about most is the audience rather than the subject of the content. So the people that we're doing the event with next week, they've got an event tomorrow called Think Like an Athlete. And that's going to have a West Ham women's football player who's been like very successful in her career to talk about that kind of mindset of an athlete and how you can apply that to business, which I think I've interviewed many people who've had that sports background who've then gone on to do very well in business. Then how to pitch in the current VC landscape. That's a Seed Legals event. And that's online as well. So 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. tomorrow. Female founders, let's talk fair funding and equal economies. So that's a breakfast kind of style meeting or event in London on Thursday at 9 a.m. to 11:30. The art of product storytelling, how to craft your brand's narrative. It's another webinar by Seed Legals. Then we saw this event, which I thought quite interesting. It's a masquerade Halloween party and meetup organized by Forbes 30 Under 30. And I'm guessing there should be quite a good bunch of entrepreneurs and movers and shakers there. And it's a free event as well. So I think you need to get approval in order to join. But for those of you out there looking to expand your network, that could be a good event as well. So that's all the events we have there at the moment. Here's some of the jobs available right now at different startups. So some of you might be thinking that you want to get into the startup space, you maybe want to start your own startup someday, but you're not quite there yet. And for those people, it's a really good idea to potentially join a startup, get that experience, and then grow from there. So these are all the people that we've interviewed the founders of, or we know the founders personally. So in no particular order, at Desi City, you've got a digital and social content manager. And Marley are looking for a social and media marketing manager. Block Dojo, so they're an accelerator, and the global commercial director is on our board, Jay Goodrow. So they're looking for early stage founders and CEOs at startup ventures. Odin are looking for a customer success manager. Nala are looking for a head of finance, a head of people and talent, and a treasury and FX manager. Hive are always hiring, so make sure you keep an eye on them. So that's Merv Rickbow. You're looking for a back-end engineer, a customer experience manager, a finance and accounts trainee, a head of capacity and planning, a payroll administrator, a people operations officer, a junior back-end engineer. Then Clicks, that's our friend Asad Hamir. So that's a business development manager. Orchard AI are looking for account manager, program manager, user coach, bid writing professional. So Raj Kher is coming on the podcast soon. And then CHR Life Sciences are looking for recruitment consultants. So that's the jobs available. That's the events we've got coming up. Let's talk about, so the podcast last week. So we had on episode 85. So we're getting very close to 100 now. Episode 85 was Kishan Bawad, who's head of product at Tarsize, and is also founder of Bahe. So it was a lab podcast, adopting a product mindset to grow businesses. So this was released while I was away. So he had great feedback from people, and it's one of these things which we're trying to do with this podcast, right? You'll notice it more and more. You see the black background, you see the red background. Black background is tactical with leaders, like experts in particular areas. And the red background is with founders to talk about their story and their journey. And off the back of that, talk about what you can learn from that journey and the inspiring story. So we need both, right? You need to be both inspired, but also to have that product background and that how to, not just product, so any area. So we're going to get different experts from different areas. So today's episode, which is going to be released any time now, is with Vishal Varani, who's the head of UK health at YouTube. And he's going to talk about how you can grow YouTube, like a business YouTube, right? So very different skills, but this is going to build up this toolkit, right? So if you keep listening to this every week, you're going to get such a good broad array of skills. That's really going to help you in your business. And it's whether you're the founder or if you're working at a startup or a scale up, or even if you're working at an enterprise and you can just get different ideas that are going to help you to do the best you can. So Kishan was great. Then we had Salim Chowdhury on the Founders podcast. So Salim is a great guest. He was very animated, very energetic. And the thing about him is he's seen it all. So he's sold 2 of his companies. He's been a partner of 500 startups. He was a former managing director of Techstars. So he's somebody who's sold companies for hundreds of millions and then gone in and helped so many other startup founders. So got huge respect in the industry, massive for us to get him on the podcast. And for me, sitting there to learn from him was incredible. So those are the 2 podcast episodes this week. Make sure you have a listen. Then, so one of the other things I want to shout out, so Uma Balachandra was our first pro subscriber, so newsletter. And with the pro subscription, you don't actually get anything other than a thank you from us. But it's just a way that for people who have done well, people who believe in what we're trying to do to support us financially, because it does create a strain, right? We need that kind of financial backing to just help us go. And hopefully we've got sponsorships coming through soon. But one thing we've realized is just everything takes a lot longer than you hope for, right? So that's something we're working on. It just makes us a bit more resilient if you've got other income streams too. So that's the main updates from me. I'm just going to have a look at anything else going on in my messages or anything like that. So let's have a look at, see if there's any big news in the tech funding world for British Asian founders. So let me just get link up. Send this to the WhatsApp group. So again, if you want to join our WhatsApp community as well, once you join our newsletter, you'll be able to find a link for that too. And if you're in a WhatsApp community, so it's growing at the moment, there's still a lot to do there, but it's a good way for you to connect with other people and to make sure you never miss anything we're doing. So the WhatsApp community will be like a beta testers in some ways. They're going to get a lot of things earlier than what's publicly announced. And it's kind of one of the perks of showing that little bit of extra commitment. And we've got some fantastic people in that group already. I think it's already about 70 people. And that's without us really pushing it too hard. The HQ community. What was it going to do? So I'm going to get this link for this video and put it in our YouTube group, in our WhatsApp group. 8 to 9 a.m. So the idea of why we do this at 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. is one, that I know that I never have any other meetings then. And also we know that generally a lot of people work from home on Mondays. So if you work from home, it's not easy to join this. If you're on your way to the office or commuting, then it's quite a difficult thing to do. But what it does, it gives me the flexibility during the working day. Whereas if I did this, and it's also for everybody else, right? It's that if you've got a working day, you're way more likely to have a meeting. You're not going to have a meeting now. This is nice and relaxed. There's no pressure. Oh, let me play some music in the background. How do I do it again? So let's do daydreaming. So that can have things going there while I chat. So as I said, if you can ask any questions in the comments. Let me add another. Can I do 2 banners at once? No, I can't. Okay. So let me just edit this banner. Click. And as I said, this is meant to be a relaxed environment, so you can see that I'm just in my fluffy nightgown here, and just ask any questions, right? Because when you meet me at an event, or if you DM me, it's in a situation where I've got so many other things going on that it's hard for me sometimes to give a fuller answer. And this is a way to make sure that you get that response and you get the answer. So feel free to ask any questions you want, ideally about business and how to grow your business, or the reality of being a founder. And I'm happy to answer. What happened to our banner? There it is. What happens if I do? Morning, Rushab. So I was actually just opening your WhatsApp on my screen there. So Rushab is, I'm going to give him a little shout out for joining. So Rushab is the co-founder of TutorHive, who are currently raising money. So if you're looking to angel invest in a company that's trying to make, well, you can give a little pitch in the comments there, Rushab, and I can read out for you. But they've also got an event next Tuesday. So it's going to be at the flagship Halifax store opposite Tottenham Court Road Station. And I can see on here, you've got the welcome note at 6 o'clock. You've got keynotes, you've got TutorHive talking, you've got a board panel Q&A at 8 o'clock, networking at 8:30, and then the close at 9. So let's see if he's got any more details on here. So what TutorHive is doing is helping students learn and educators teach. Oh, there you go. He's got his one-liner. So one-liner is unlocking the potential of every student while empowering teachers with a scalable platform and social business model. So feel free to drop the link to your website in the comments, and anybody who sees this either live or afterwards will see that. So your first question was about how my holiday was. So I haven't taken this much time off in a very long time, and it's been really important for me to do that. And I found being able to just take some time off guilt-free has been really important, because there's, in the nature of what I do, it means there's always a million things to do. There's always things I could be doing that I'm not doing. And there's always I carry around a continual guilt, because there's always somebody asking for a favor or somebody doing this, and I feel bad if I don't do it. But the thing is, I'm burning out, right? And over summer, I was dealing with grief, and September was very busy, October was very busy. I never really had any time to just be and just allow myself to think. And that's what this week was, right? So I went to Berlin. I didn't announce it. I didn't post it on social media. I didn't put loads of pictures of myself eating. I ate a lot of kebabs, which is very good for you. And that was my week off. A lot of nice coffee, a lot of time at spas and stuff like that, to just allow myself to relax. And as I come back, what that does, it gives you perspective. So even taking inspiration from Bill Gates does a think week every week. And I think it's really important to founders, for investors, for anybody in the space, any high achiever, essentially, to take a proper week off. Because all I'm doing all of the time is reacting. And the same thing, I'm back now. My WhatsApp is pinging off, my emails, I've got a million emails to reply to. When do I get time to think in the normal week? I don't really get the time. And by me taking that week off, it allows me to focus my mind, remember what's important, remember why I'm doing what I'm doing. And also to see if what I'm doing is changed, because it might be that my motivations have changed, and they have changed over time. So it's looking at what are my sources of stress and why am I allowing them to stress me out? Because some of it, and this is a problem I have, is people pleasing, is that I'm sacrificing my own health, I'm sacrificing gym time, I'm sacrificing time with my friends, I'm sacrificing fun time to keep other people happy. And that's not the best use of my life necessarily, right? So now that I'm back again, I'm really focused on building the systems out, it's accelerating some of the stuff I was doing already, but really adding that importance to it, because I should be able to take time off and not feel guilty about that. So yeah, it was just really good to just like, well, I read 2 books actually as well, so I can talk about those. I read 4,000 Weeks and by Oliver Burkeman, and I read Breathe by James Nestor, and both books were like really good, so definitely recommend them. Breathe by James Nestor is one I just finished, and that's one about how, and it's going to be a common problem for a lot of you listening as well, where if you don't breathe properly, especially there's something called email apnea, right? So you might have heard of sleep apnea. That's where people suffocate during their sleep because they're not breathing properly, right? But people get it from emails as well, because they're constantly looking at different things. They forget to breathe. So you have these weird periods that people have during the day where their heart rate gets higher, all these kind of things. So making sure you're looking after yourself is a really important thing for founders. So question from Gervir. So let's see what he said. What excites you most over the next final quarter? So I can't believe it's already basically November. Also, you can join this. Gervir can join in the background. Oh, it's in the train. Okay. So the next final quarter. So we've got the Rise event, which I mentioned earlier. So people joining now, if you can rewind and listen to the first bit, where we've got the event on the 9th. And that's with Barclays Rise. So they're the fintech accelerator. So they're focused on helping companies that combine finance and technology to grow faster. And obviously, the better they do, the better Barclays does. And we've got an amazing panel all about financial inclusion in tech. So that's with Nina Mohanty, who's the founder of Bloom Money, who's been on the podcast before. And what she's really trying to focus on is immigrants and migrants who come to the UK. And there's so much, like the financial system here can be quite complicated for an outsider. So it's the educational piece, but it's also how to enable them to make the best of their resources and to make the best of the systems we have here to set them up for success, right? Then you've got Matt Ong, who is the founder of Controlled Alt, and Controlled Alt is about AB81. So I can't see your name, so introduce yourself. So Matt Ong is the founder of Controlled Alt, and they're allowing people to invest in alternative investments. And disclosure as well, I've invested in their company as an angel investor. I have the tiniest check in the round, but I still count, so I have access to more detail about them, but you'll get to hear about their story and how they're making things such as being able to invest in a home and the property market at a much earlier level, which opens up doors for so many people. Then you've got Nitya Gupta, who is an investor at Element Ventures. So she invests in fintech companies and she's an expert in this area. So she sees pitches from different companies trying to grow, trying to expand, trying to get funding. And what she does there is she's got that expertise to be able to tell what's an idea that can scale and what changes need to be made, or she's able to navigate that area. And also, a lot of time when you have only founders in the room, it can be very dreamland, right? Whereas an investor can give that reality check of like, here's the challenges, here's why things aren't getting invested in, here's the problem that needs to be overcome. That's a really important perspective for that panel. So if you want to sign up to that, let me just get the link for you there as well. So that is the best way to reach us as well. If you come to these events, we're going to recognize you, we're going to remember you, and they can often be quite chaotic, but there's just so many great people in the room that you're sure to make new friends and people who can help you to grow and scale your business. And also, a lot of time it's just friends as well, people who understand the troubles you're going through. So a question here from B81. Feel free to introduce yourself in the comments as well. If you want people to know what your business is and what you do. So how do I reach out to companies to collabs? So I get a lot of terrible people reaching out to me, for example, where it's not very clear what they want. So people might be like, oh, I'd love to grab a coffee someday. I was like, coffee about what? I don't know what, right? So one of the best things you can do, and it's a hack that I was kind of just mentioning there, is if you want to get in touch with somebody, pay attention to like the large companies, let's say, or say investors and people like that. Go to their events, because if you go to their events, then you're in the room where they're giving their attention to people in the audience. If you're in the email inbox, or if you're in the LinkedIn DMs or Instagram DMs, you're a to-do, right? And that's the way it is that anybody who's got a significant scale, they're gonna have a lot of people messaging them, and it can be really tough to manage that. So that's one of the best ways to reach out to people, is to build that relationship in person by looking at what events they're hosting and going to their events. A good other way is to look at who the key people in that company want to talk to are. Follow them on whatever platform is, engage with them, comment on their posts. If they've got an email newsletter, subscribe to email newsletter, reply to their emails. And it's the whole, if you've heard of jab, jab, punch, right? Is that people who are consistently doing things where it doesn't seem obvious that they want something from me before they ask for something, it helps a lot, because then I'm like, okay, cool, I know this person. When they ask me something, yeah, I'm more likely to help. So when you're looking at collabs, if you give a bit more information about what kind of collab you mean as well, because that can really vary quite heavily. Because if you're looking for, if you can add a bit more detail, what kind of collabs you're looking for, because then I can give a more precise answer for you. And one of the interesting things now in terms of where we're at is that warm intros are always best, but it's warm intros that have been earned in some way. So let's say after the podcast, I've had a good relationship, good chat with somebody, I can say to them like, oh, by the way, do you know anybody who can help us? Okay, for example, working with Barclays. So I'm just going to put that on the screen for you. So how did this come about? So I guess I can show some of the big collaborations we've done for our events and how they've happened. And a big part of it is we've got credit, like we're credible in that we've got like 80 episodes out. We've talked to some of the biggest names in the scene. We've got investment background from Gervir. I've got the media background. So when we come into these conversations, we come in with a level of strength already. And with Barclays, I believe I actually just went to a few of their events. So I went to a few of their events. I met a bunch of the people there and kind of told them about what we're doing. I didn't pitch them for anything. They just asked me, what do you do? And I told them what I did, right? And then I kept those relationships up, I went to coffees for them. Then later on, then they introduced me to other people at the company, and that's all happening organically now. So within Barclays, I probably have like 30 or 40 good contacts. And at Barclays Rise, for example, I'm now got a good relationship with the guy who's in charge, and that always helps. Then I've also got people in the events. So I have that different levels of engagement. But the thing is, if I went in and be like, oh, I want this from you, they're going to tell me to go away, right? But because they can see the work I'm doing, and another good thing to do as well is often I connect with people on LinkedIn. They don't send them a message, don't send them anything, but they can just now see what I'm up to. So you meet somebody at an event, you add them on LinkedIn, then you don't need to, maybe you don't even chat that much, but then afterwards they can keep seeing what you're doing. So when next time I chat to them, they're like, oh, I love what you guys are doing. And it's not me pushing it to them. It's that they're naturally seeing on their LinkedIn, they're then subscribing to our newsletters themselves. And it completely changes the relationship, because these people want to work with us as opposed to us begging them to work with us. So that's what I'd say is like, in terms of collaboration with big companies, it's do the work. So if you do the work, then people respect that. Like we bootstrapped BayHQ for over a year, right? So that's us paying for everything, all the podcasts, all of that kind of stuff. And that gains the respect, right? Because sometimes people go into these conversations expecting everything for them on a platter, and then they're like, oh, but it didn't work out, right? And when you come with that attitude of, we're going to smash it, you're going to be part of it or not, it's a much better position to be in. Whereas if you come into that, we need you, why aren't you helping us? It doesn't work as well. And it's happened quite a few times now where we've met people at events, we've chatted to them a bit, added each other on LinkedIn, and then they've reached out to me a month later being like, oh, love what you're doing, can we collab? And that's a nice position to be in, right? You want it to be where they're asking you to collab rather than the other way around. So that's what I'd say is like, whichever industry you're in, whatever you're doing, is be the kind of person that they want to collab with. And then all of the relationship is very different once you have that going for you. Whereas if you're starting something new completely and you're asking for help straight away, then the same thing. If someone wants to collab with the Bay HQ, if you're just starting out, then I'm like, but you haven't done anything yet, right? I don't have a track record of you. And even if you're a more large and experienced organization, it's got to really align with what we're trying to do, because with the stage we're at, where we're essentially a startup, if we collaborate with people, then that's our energy going towards something which maybe isn't on our core path. And that's one of the main things to think about as well. Sometimes it's not that you're good or you're bad, it just might be not aligned properly. Do you do speaker events? Is there a fee? So when you say a fee, do you mean a fee for, like, do we pay the speakers? Do we pay, or does the audience pay? So we, like, for example, with the panel with Barclays next week, it's that, I guess that's a speaker event. Then we do like live podcasts. So we've done podcasts with Dimple Patel, Asad Hamir, Safwan Adam, and Nav Sawhney. So we're going to be doing a lot more of that in 2024. Obviously now we've got a couple more events before we get to December. And we obviously know in December, everybody basically shuts down for Christmas parties. And then we come back again in January with a big schedule. So there'll be a lot more events coming up. We've done a few different speaker events so far. And the topics of these events vary. And that's intentional, right? We don't want to just be doing the same thing over and over again. We want to include different people from different backgrounds. Oh, so yeah. So I speak at different companies, yeah. So what's your company? So I can see that. So I've spoken at Sky, Ocado, like Soho House, a few other ones. So we can discuss that. So if you send me an email, we can discuss that kind of thing, because in terms of fees, it really depends on the audience and who's there and how much preparation work there is for me. So Rushad wants me to, it is a very fluffy, I should get this like a Bay HQ logo here for it. So if you can send me an email about that, because generally what I do is, if it's a corporate event, so I have this, my basic model is Robin Hooding, right? Is that if it's for a charity or something like that, then I tend to do it like free or like that's it, right? If it's for a multi-billion-dollar company, then I'm going to charge, because we usually have the budget, and also a lot of what I'm doing is not for profit. So me doing a few speaking events helps me to pay the bills. But yeah, if you let me know a bit more about what the kind of conditions that would be, then I can look into that. So in the next couple of weeks, so I'm getting a lot of love for the fluffy gown. I need to get the logo up on this, on the Bay HQ. I don't know where it's from. Maybe we start a side business with the Bay HQ about the, well, it's not got a label anymore, so it's a mystery. It's actually reversible too, so it goes inside and outside. But yeah, so in the next couple of weeks, I know that I've got the Barclays Rides event where I'm hosting. I think then the following day, I'm actually going to the University of Bath to give a talk about startups and how to access as an outsider. So in this is where it kind of depends. I don't know what your company is about or what kind of audience it'd be, so I can tailor it in different ways. I've given talks about like how to use like an entrepreneurial mindset in companies, how to build resilience, how to diversify your skill set. If it's, for example, at the university, it's more about giving people an education of what opportunities are available and how to enter the startup world, right? Because a lot of people don't know about that. So if you give me an idea of the kind of audience, then I can give you what topics I could cover that would work best for those people. For example, if it's like for a South Asian thing, so South Asian Heritage Month for Sky, then the talk is about my background and how me doing something different and that journey and what advice it gives to other people trying to do something different. But at the same time, it really depends on the audience, because obviously I understand if it's a large corporate, I'm not going to tell people to quit their jobs and become entrepreneurs. And even for me, I was in the corporate world for 7 years before doing what I'm doing. And the skills I learned in the corporate world really helped me in what I'm doing today. So what I can teach people as well there is about the portfolio element of everything you're doing now. It's very transferable, and people sometimes often forget that. So even about how I'm talking right now, this is a skill I learned from consulting, because I was a technology consultant, and often what I was doing under the covers was very complicated. And what I had to do is talk to different people in the business and make a complicated tech thing seem quite easy to understand and to get buy-in, right? So that skill, being able to take something complicated and make it easy to understand, is basically the core skill of my storytelling and what I'm doing today. If people don't necessarily think, oh, I'm a consultant, I can do this. And other times you've got to unlearn different skills in order to excel in a alternative career or as a founder. So yeah, let me know a bit more about that, the topic or the company or the audience, and I can put something together for you. Let me see if I can work out with this. So I don't know, I'm not very good at this. Winter, I'm not very good at winter. I get cold, so I need to kind of wear a fluffy gown, and I like to wear a hoodie all the time, but I now need to be more sophisticated, and I can't wear a hoodie all the time. One of the great things about Berlin, if you haven't been at anybody, is it's a very laid-back environment. So if you're like me and you generally like just being in relaxed, comfy clothes, it's a great place to go. And I think this is one of the interesting things. So let me introduce the kind of topic now about an email I got last week while I was on holiday. So I was offered a spot in a national newspaper's top 10 entrepreneurs to look out for this year. So I'll come back to your question in a second. So what people forget, and it's a lot of stuff about status on making entrepreneurs, is a lot of the time people pay for these things. So somebody emailed me being like, oh, we'd love to put you into top 10 entrepreneurs for national newspaper read by millions of people every day. It's £5,000 to be selected. So I see this a lot of people who pitch me to come on the podcast, and they say, oh, I'm a top 10 entrepreneur by X organization, by this newspaper. It's like, I know you paid to do that. So it's one of these things to be really careful as a founder in this world, is to take all of those things with some caution, because I'm going to judge you. It's going to be a negative judgment on me if I know that you've paid to make yourself appear more important in the list. And that's something which often people who aren't in this industry don't realize it happens. So they think all of these awards and stuff like that are earned, and often they aren't. So whenever you look at an award, it really depends who else is on that list. So there's, for example, lists of the best entrepreneur. So just be very careful about awards, and when people are very focused on status as opposed to what their business is actually doing. What are you doing with Sky? So with Sky, what we did is with South Asian Heritage Month, it was me, Jaspreet Kaur Hofti, who is the author of Behind the Netra, the author of Brown Girls Like Me. Then it was Tony Shergill, MBE, who was the founder of BritAsia, and then one of the major Dole players, Dole Foundation, I believe. He was on there as well. So we basically gave a talk. We gave a panel event at Sky in the auditorium, and that one was about our experiences. Whereas what I do, that was where they kind of organised it for the Multicultural Heritage Month. Whereas at Say Ocado, I gave a talk to their 200-something graduates about building resilience in a career where things are changing. And because obviously now the world is so in flux all the time, I've had to constantly change my skills and things like that. So there's different topics you can cover there. And if you just let me know the kind of things you're interested in, then I can tailor it for you in that way. And depending on how much work it is how much, if I charge or if I don't charge, or who the audience is too. I like this background music that we've got playing here. It kind of makes it feel quite relaxing. So what I use for this recording too is something called StreamYard. So StreamYard is owned by Hopin. who is like somebody I work with, and who've done very well. So if you're looking to do this kind of stuff, like I recommend StreamYard. I obviously get this for free because I work with them. So just giving them a little shout out there as well. So there's another couple of emails coming through. People signed up to the Barclays Rise event. So that Barclays Rise event is in the comments somewhere. There you go. So that's our next event. That's next week. So if you want to meet us in person, that's a great way to do it. I am often quite a deer in headlights at these events where sometimes people don't realize I'm naturally probably an introvert. But because the nature of what I do means I'm constantly talking to people, it means that I have some level of charisma, I guess, or sophistication where I'm able to handle a huge amount of inbound. But these events can often be quite overwhelming, where there's a lot of people trying to talk, but it's really interesting to see like the people who turn up. Like if I look through I can have a quick look through who's coming at the moment on here. So I can see like founder, this guy was Barbes Mystery, who's a former head of design at Founders Factory. Who else I recognize here? Jabir Massi, there's Jamila, there's Jaskier Manga, who was former, I think it was Venture ESG, she was in charge there. There's an investor here from Westcap Capital, Jessie City founder. She's the founder of an AI company. Pamela Say, who was in charge of marketing, I believe, for Alibaba EMA, so like Europe, Middle East and Asia. There's investor from AT Kearney. There's Rishabh Shah, he might still be listening, so I can see him. He signed up to this list. Uma Balachandra, who's the founder of a stealth startup. So this is me recognizing names from the guest list. On LinkedIn is what I'm going to have to do today, or just message with people who sign up on LinkedIn and tell them to sign up on our Luma as well, because Luma is where we track, and that's what we're going to give to Barclays. Yeah, so there's actually 2 announcements for funding this week that I know of. So Flashpack, which is by Radha Vyas, they've raised 6 million, and then Control have raised 2.5 million. So I can go through the other ones later on and just see who else is potentially a British Asian founder. What's been the biggest challenge to the Bay HQ? So this is an interesting one because the Bay HQ initially started off as a side hustle, right? A side project. Like it was going to be like a little not-for-profit thing me and my co-founder Gerda React did on the side. And probably the biggest challenges have been on the personal space because my dad passed away like the week before we were planning to launch. Gerda's got married. Like there's been so much change in our personal lives this year that have been quite heavy, and like obviously Gerda's is a happy thing, but it's a big change to your life, right? Is that we're trying to then at the same time run this while having these big changes. And one of the huge challenges is now it's flipped, right? So Hainin Zhang is the founder of Buy Hungry, and she uses this metaphor, which I really love, is at the beginning, you're pushing the rock up the hill, right? You're trying to find product market fit. And that's what was like in the first few months of Bay HQ, it was trying to reach out to people, trying to get people to come on the podcast, trying to get people to have a meeting with us. Now it's totally flipped. So now it's like we've got to the mountain, and then now the rock is like behind us and we're trying to run behind it because there's so much demand. And the biggest challenge now is we're very lucky, and there's so many incredible people out there who want to get involved, who want to talk to us, who want to come to our events, who want to have coffee with us, but we've also got limited time. So it's balancing that out now, I think, is the biggest challenge of systematizing things, getting things in the right order. So how you get from 0 to 1 versus how you get to 1 to 100 is very different. And I think we've done that 0 to 1 now, right? We've got that good brand awareness. We've worked with HSBC, Barclays, all these kind of different people. And now it's about, okay, how do you scale this? How do you build those systems such that in 5 years' time, we can have 50 people working with us or 100 people working with us? And okay, so my phone battery died. I use my phone as my camera for my recordings. So now you get the laptop camera, which is much uglier. But yeah, I'd say the biggest challenge has been, on a personal level, it's been that trying to deal with grief at the same time as growing this. Then it's at the beginning, it was just getting people to pay attention to us. And now it's how do we, like, a lot of the hardest thing is too is saying no to people, right? There's so many people who like now want to come on the podcast, want to do this, want to do that, and we've got to say no. And like that's something which, as a people-pleasing person, it's really hard for me. And yeah, like it's been, I think one of the things we've shown is that commitment, even when the times are hard at the beginning, to just get it off the ground and get it going. Now being 85 episodes in, 87 episodes in, it shows that we're here to stay and we've got that staying power. And I think so many organizations start and go very quickly. And one of the interesting things I had to overcome when we're pitching it to other people is that people thought, oh, like, but this isn't going to last. Like, you're going to give up. You're going to do anything, right? And showing that we're still here and that we're still standing up, we're still being counted, we're still throwing us in a, like, I think a big win that we've had. And the other big challenge is the funding side, right? Is that this is not for profit. It's being bankrolled by us at the moment. So we're talking to like several major organizations to hopefully get them to be like lead sponsors on this. And once that happens, obviously it makes things a lot easier because the financial side is obviously going to make things easier. And what's happened now is that Gervin, my co-founder, has come back full time. So we're separating out the Bay HQ impact, which all the not-for-profit stuff happens, which is all the stuff you kind of see and everyone gets for free, versus Bay HQ and a company side, where we can give advisory for companies, where we can do people's pitch decks for them, where we can do people's pod. That kind of is the money that helps us get paid and us to pay our bills. Because what we're going to do is all the money that's coming in through the impact side is being reinvested into impact, right? And that's something really important from us from a kind of integrity perspective of that we're doing this for the community. And it's not about us getting rich out of this, and it's not about us pretending to be good and we're actually doing stuff behind the back door, right? And that integrity, I think one of the big things I tell a lot of people too is that it's easy to make money online, right? It's absolutely easy if you don't have integrity. If you've got integrity, it's way harder, but it's more meaningful long term. Because a lot of people making lots of money online, they're doing it in ways where morally ambiguous, right? And that for us has never been, oh, should we sacrifice our morals to make more money? Like that's just not come into the equation. But by having that stance, it makes things harder, 100%, but it makes things way more important to us because we're not doing this to get rich off of it. We're doing this because we really care about what we're doing. But at the same time, we need to feed ourselves, right? We need to pay our bills. So that's the interesting dynamic there of how to make that work as a model correctly. And even, for example, now, like if you go to sign up to our newsletter, we're now taking on people to give basically donations through that newsletter, just to show support, because that means the world to us, right? Is that one person, say $100, £100 per year, it's £100, $100. Hopefully, yeah, it's 100. Essentially means that whoever does that basically pays for a podcast episode. So it keeps us afloat and keeps us moving. Whereas obviously, like any business, and especially in the times we have, we've got different financial pressures that we need to take on as well and accommodate for. So we've got just 3 minutes left now. So is there any more questions? Thanks everyone for the questions as well and like being engaged. It's been really fun. I'm now opening my emails and just seeing the damage of like me being on holiday for a week. Okay. It's quite a lot of emails. All right. So, and then my video keeps dropping in now, doesn't it? So 3 more minutes. Any more questions, let me know. And then I'm going to get my coffee and start my day. Okay, 2 more minutes. Please. That's a complicated question. Don't talk about my dating life publicly, just because if there's other people involved and things like that, it's just you never know who can take offense to what or what's going on. So I'm blushing now. I've kind of lost my. It's hard to get me to shut up, but then I don't know what to say. I'm not married, and yeah, now I know that there's going to be people watching this who are now going to be taking the piss out of me. So, but thanks that you made me smile. And if you send me that email about the potential speaking stuff as well, and I'll get back to you on that too. So 1 more minute to go. What's the time? So thank you everybody for joining today. I hope this was useful. It's good fun for me as well. And see you next week. So also make sure you sign up to our event on Wednesday. Best way to meet me in person. If you want to send anybody who's interested for non-business reasons, send them across too. And take care.